looks like too, so.
It being 7:01 PM on Wednesday, November 15th, we will begin tonight's select board meeting. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone here for public comment? There being none. The next item on the agenda is the review of minutes for October 18th, 2023. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll move to approve the minutes for October 18th, 2023.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? There- Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No discussion?
No discussion.
There be none, all in favor?
Aye. Can I just make a note?
Sure.
If we've approved through October, I think the last ones that are posted on the town website are the end of August. Is there any way we can get the approved minutes on the website?
So take a look at it. And everything that's approved up to this date should be on there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. The next item on the agenda is the Class 2 vehicle dealer new license hearing for 1177 Main Street, Papa Auto LLC.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would say we probably would table this till the next meeting. I know the gentleman had asked to be on this meeting, so I thought that he was aware that we were scheduling it for tonight.
Okay.
So I'll follow up with him tomorrow and see, what his schedule, whether there was kind of a miscommunication there, so.
Excellent. Next item. Mr. Duffy, if you want to come to the table.
Good evening, members of the board. Here with you on two matters. Maybe we'll deal with the non-discrimination policy first. Okay, what you have before you are a proposed policy and a proposed procedure for your endorsement. On background, the town last week applied to the EPA for funding to address contamination at 172 Sterling Street. The EPA requires that all grant recipients have in place a non-discrimination policy and grievance procedures, and they verify this. The laws that you see in the policy, the notice of non-discrimination, which is a policy statement that says that we do not discriminate on the basis of what are listed there. They're the things we haven't been able to discriminate against for 60 or 70 years at this point, 60 years anyway, on the basis of race, color, national origin, disability, age, or sex in the administration of its programs or activities, and does not intimidate or retaliate against those who file a complaint or a grievance. And then it references a number of federal laws, the newest of which you can see is 1976. So these have been longstanding, and this is really just a matter of making explicit to the grantor that we have adopted these policies and procedures in writing. To be honest, I don't believe we've ever gotten an EPA grant before or applied for EPA funding, and that's why this has probably never come up before. So I have before you a policy statement, and that's taken from the EPA's recommended model language adopted for the town of Clinton, and a grievance procedure, which comes from research into 5 or 6 different entities and what their grievance procedures were, and matching them up to kind of an understanding of what procedure we would follow in here. Modeled, in fact, on our DHCD grievance procedures, which we've had in place for CDBG programs for decades. So, to briefly walk through the grievance procedure, the town would appoint a grievance coordinator, and I'm proposing that it be Michael Ward, who already is, I believe, our Section 504 coordinator for the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that there is procedure for submitting a complaint. It indicates that you have to demonstrate that your complaint is based on one of the foundational federal laws, that you have to name the incident, you have to name the aggrieving party, and that it has to be within 180 days of the purported incident. And then Michael will open a file, will investigate, and make a determination based on the evidence. And then there'll be a process to try to remediate and address the grieving party to ensure that that it doesn't happen again. And it says, frankly, that that any complaint or grievance filed with the town does not preclude the complainant from filing with any other state or federal agency.
So, Mr. Chair, just to add, the town did have a procedure for disability claims, but it apparently wasn't as comprehensive as this agency was looking for to include all the other affected groups. So.
And not to nerd out on you, but the EPA specifically refers to Code of Federal Regulations 40, Parts 5 and 7, where a disability coordinator comes from Section 504 of the Americans with Disabilities Act. This also pulls in Title IX and one other set of federal regulations. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So this is kind of omnibus language to address the existence of discrimination as defined in federal law. It states that we will not discriminate, and it establishes a procedure for receiving and evaluating complaints or alleged violations of the federal law.
Mr. Chair. Sure. Just for clarification, is this for contractors or for employees or for everybody?
This is not for employees. Employees are covered under a separate grievance procedure. So the policy is townwide, but the grievance procedure applies to those who feel that they have been discriminated against in programs that are funded by any of a number of federal entities.
And this is probably something we should have on the books anyway.
Yeah, quite frankly. And if we were to receive an award, the EPA would require that we have these in place within 30 days of receiving an award. But as I was doing the application, doing the research, I thought, well, this makes sense. This has been public policy for literally 60 years now, 50 years now anyway. So we should just put it in writing and say that we've done it.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if the board's ready to act on this tonight, but if they are, I'm willing to make a motion.
I am.
Good.
Yep.
Then I move that we endorse or approve. What are we doing? Adopting, that's the word. Adopt a non-discrimination policy and grievance procedure for non-employees.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Thanks for doing this, Phil. Sorry.
Sure. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One thing to mention.
Very good.
And then secondly, I wanted to talk to you about our holiday banners. Due to an unforeseen circumstance, we will be replacing the series of banners that have been up for the last 2 years with a new series of designs. I'm bringing these to you for your review and hopefully your approval. Effectively, there appears to have been a miscommunication between town staff and our vendor, and the banners were thrown out. The banners we had purchased in 2021. When we issued those banners, we informed the businesses that we would put them up for 3 years and then refresh. We had them up for 2 years. So what we're proposing to do is sell them and offer a discount to businesses that have already partaken in the program.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So they were stored here and accidentally thrown away, or at the?
They were stored with the vendor who in the last 2 years who had printed them in and then put them up and taken them down.
Oh, okay, so the people that print them, they would give them to us, we'd hang them up, and then we would ship them back to them, and they would store them until?
No, they actually did the putting up and taking down. They got out there with trucks and lifts, put them up,
Oh,
and
okay.
then mounted
So
them and demounted them.
Okay, all right, so they handle everything and they just accidentally threw, so it's not like we're not being charged to like purchase new flags for the poles, right? New banners?
We will be charged to put up new banners. It seems to be a he said, she said kind of miscommunication, but we won't per se be paying, the sponsors will be. So these banners were sponsored by businesses.
What's the he said, she said portion of it?
That I called up about a month ago, say, hey, we're getting ready to put the banners, just want to schedule that. And he said, we talked with someone in your office and we thought you were going to be putting out new banners, so we tossed them.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then that person said, I never said this. And then that person said, yes, you did. And rather than go through weeks and weeks of trying to figure that out, in part because of the time, just wanted to.
Are there other companies that provide?
Used the same vendor for that, no, sorry.
Yeah, are there other companies that provide this service?
Yes, in fact, they will almost certainly be printed by another company.
Okay, so but is this like something that has to go out to bid and takes a while before someone can get selected, or is it under an amount where we can have some
It's
flexibility?
under an amount.
What's that?
It's under an amount.
All right, so
It's well under an amount.
okay, so we're going with a different vendor.
Yeah, well, I will, as a courtesy, send them to this vendor to see if they give us a sweet deal, because they feel bad. But absent, I don't think that that's going to be the case. So we may end up with another vendor.
Is there a paper trail on that conversation that took place?
No,
No email, it was all, it was a,
it's all conversation.
Yeah, I mean, so clearly these guys don't understand the concept of like a long-term customer, because they're gonna potentially lose an account just because they're complaining about that we allegedly said that. I mean, my advice would be find another vendor. I mean, if they're gonna like treat us like this as a customer, if it's a miscommunication and if it is a he said, she said, a good business would kind of like side with the customer and say, I'm gonna get more business later on, so.
I understand. I completely understand where you're coming from.
are these what you're submitting for approval?
Yes.
The only thing I would say,
I should say, don't go by the colors. I think that the printer's not doing it.
not worried about the colors, just looking at the content. I thought it was more appropriate in the past where it was kind of, everything was very neutral. There's a couple on here that I would say, in my opinion, I would prefer to be swapped out, where if it's just presents versus the exchanging of presents. I know I'm splitting the atom right now,
Yeah.
but
To be honest,
look, when we did the Clinton banners recently, that was a huge part of the theme, right? Everything was it was inclusive, it was very neutral.
Yeah.
And to me, this one doesn't follow that same logic, in my opinion.
well, with all due respect,
Sure.
Mr. Chair, our intent was, as we did with this series of banners, is kind of go through the evolution of the series of banners that are up there now. This series of banners started out with the idea of live, work, play, which you see in shopping malls and in newspaper ads, in magazine ads. And I just eat, drink, eat, live, work. Eat, live. It was not eat, drink, pray. It was live, work. Oh, what do they say? Live, work, play. Whatever they.
Live, love, laugh.
Eat, play.
Exactly. All these three
Yeah.
things. And rather than hit people over the head with it, what I suggested to the graphic designer was, well, these are images. This is a graphic language. Let's show images of people living and working and playing, but locate them in a stylized and abstracted background that is recognizable as Clinton. So they're silhouetted figures that are walking or riding their bikes or getting a haircut, but you see the fountain or the dam or the elementary school or the Australian marquee in the background. And in a similar way, this is kind of speaking a graphic language to the joy of the season, without getting into an overtly religious message, because that's really hard to do. But they speak to the joy of the season, whether it's shared or individual, and does so in a graphic language. So in that respect, I think they're very successful. They'll be a little bit abstracted. They've been taken into an app to make them a little bit more painterly than photographic, because they're based on photographs. But I think we're trying to, when people come to Clinton, just have a little smile. They see something that's, that kind of lifts your spirits. And I'd submit that these kind of do. We went through a process of winnowing down, and so.
Well, just from my 5 cents, I have to agree with the chairman.
Yeah.
I don't know, I see like, the person making an angel, and it just doesn't really do anything for me. Or, I don't know, I don't know. I know it's different, so I mean, sometimes these things, when they're different, you have to kind of give yourself a chance to get to like them or to see how people respond to them, but they just don't seem like the traditional to me anyways, but that's,
I think they're a little better than traditional myself, but that's of an opinion.
You know, and I mean, what I'll say is, you know, when we think about inclusivity, you know, to me, you know, having a giant turkey on a banner maybe doesn't speak to everybody,
I appreciate that.
right? And, you know, with the idea of exchanging gifts, you know, the hands, I think you have a pile of presents. I think it says something a little bit differently than having two sets of hands exchanging the gift. I think it says something a little bit differently. That's.
I mean, I do like kind of the, I thought the other ones were a little too traditional.
They were
And I
very
felt like
static.
they were a little hard to
They had no graphic
read.
oomph. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of like the boldness of it, would love to try to see, because I do think readability and kind of when you're driving stands out. I think it might be a little hard to read the one with the turkey with the reversed out white. So that was just like a legibility, but in trying to envision them on the poles, yeah, I think, you know, I like the kind of modern font. We've had the traditional, we'll try the modern, see what the kind of pulse of the community is, and go from there.
Want to add this in?
I'm not getting this deep in the weeds on this.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, I guess I certainly respect the opinions of my fellow board members. It didn't ring that way with me. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I just, but I don't want to, how do we want to do this? I mean,
I
it seems
really
like.
don't, I mean, if they want to try it, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, I think I'm not great about it.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to see how the people respond to it. Like I said in the beginning,
Yeah,
it may not be something that I'm looking at and saying, oh, I love it. But again, I'm only one person. People may fall in love with the whole concept of it. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to trying it and see how it's accepted.
I don't have a problem design-wise. I'm willing to go nuts on there. You know, I don't. Again, it's matters of opinion. Where I don't think there's nothing. You know, there's no.
There's certainly nothing like controversial.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Right. There's,
You know,
you know.
No.
So.
I thought kids might like the dog.
Yeah. Had to get
I
enough
got
out
a
of
bad
that.
feeling that's going to be preview coming attractions in my house. So.
The only thing I agree with Julie that I like the one with the dog and the turkey, but that might be difficult to decipher when you're driving by.
No,
I'm
I
not-
agree.
Yeah.
And we had a couple images that were like that.
Yeah.
And that's why I brought it it had it punched up with that paint app. Yeah, I agree, but it's just a funny image.
Yeah, I agree.
It is funny.
So, which is to say that if there were any one of these banners that there were overriding objections to, in the interest of timeliness, because we're on a very collapsed timeline to get these printed and out, I'd ask for your approval, and if there was a banner that there were reservations about, I would just, in the interest of time, we just pull that from the series and go with the rest of them.
Do you want to look at a different present on that? Or?
No, I will support whatever decision the board makes as a whole, so I'm not.
I mean, I don't think there's Hanukkah presents and there's.
Well, I'll move just that we go ahead and prove it for this year and see how people respond to it. And
It's 3 years though, right?
is it 3 years?
Yeah,
I just didn't know what he was
Just
saying
to be
with the
clear.
vendor.
Yeah. No,
it would be a 3-year.
I think the
Okay,
commitment.
so you have to make the commitment even though this is the same vendor you're having issues with. You still have to give them 3 years.
Yeah, we try to amortize the cost of the banner over a few seasons.
Okay.
So yeah, if everybody says they stink, we'll change gears. But
Well, then, Mr.
Put 'em
Chairman,
on
I'll move that we go ahead with the proposed from Phil and then if it's a commitment for 3 years, that we accept that commitment.
Second.
Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I think they look good. You can drive through other towns and see their banners, and having an understanding of scale and how you convey information on a banner when somebody's driving past it at 25 miles an hour is completely missed in many places. So we're very conscious of designing these to be perceived by the user, and I think that these are a big step up on the ones that we're replacing.
What's the timeline, do you think?
7 to 10 days to print. So, we've already sold we've already been soliciting people and since this afternoon, and we already have about 30 sold. So I think we're going to sell pretty quickly.
Excellent. That form's available on your site
It's
or?
available on the site. The availability of banners has been pushed out on Facebook and by the Chamber of Commerce. And I've been reaching out to the people who are already subscribed to the program just to let them know that this is the situation. So,
Right. For 3 years, I think it's very reasonable.
yeah, it's an opportunity to, let the community know that you're part of the community. Have your name up on the streets during the holiday. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys.
Excellent. The next item on the agenda is the American Rescue Plan Act recommendations for employee hazard duty pay.
And Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
if I may, I did pass out to the other board members tonight that after we left the last meeting, after we were given the proposal by Ed, I went out and I basically did some research myself, and after much thought and consideration about it, I said, I just felt that the proposal, as you'll see, is to compensate for all those 3 departments, police, fire, and Board of Health, the same amount of money, in the amount of $2,500. And the reason why I felt it was a fair amount to give to all 3 departments was because after learning, the functions of these 3 departments during the pandemic, they certainly shared really as a joint effort on behalf of the community. The police worked 7 days a week, 24 hours a day for 365 days. They didn't know when their calls, their calls come in constantly. They didn't know what every call was going to be when they responded to it, so there was the hazard of that. Obviously, the fire, we know every time they went out in the ambulance, it was a hazard to them as well. And from my understanding, the Board of Health was the coordinating factor in all of this. Everything that they were supplied by federal and state government in relation to individuals within our community who had contracted the virus, and all of the functions of their department was a 7-day commitment on behalf of the town during the pandemic. So I just saw it as a fairness, if we were going to do it, that they'd all be treated the same and all given the same compensation. And that was my reasoning for the...
Thank you for putting that together. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So I'm sure there's going to be a couple different versions or opinions going back and forth on this, but I still think that if we're looking at exposure risk, I still believe that the fire department was the most exposed. I do think the police department was second most, but I think those two are kind of in their own. So I think fire department and police department are kind of head and shoulders above everybody else. And I would argue, I think fire department is more, but the gap between the two, I mean, we could sit here and argue changes of hundreds of dollars here or there. I would recommend that the fire department get the most to reflect the most amount of risk. The police department shortly behind there. But I would just put those two like far and away from the Board of Health and cafeteria workers. I would be willing to, I think in my initial proposal, when we were talking the last time, we had Board of Health at like 1,200. I'd be willing to kind of like come up on that a little bit closer to 1,800 or even 2,000. but I would still like to see the fire department at the original 3,200 that I recommended. I'm fine with the police department at 2,500. Like I said, Board of Health, I'd be fine with in the 1,800 to 2,000 range, and cafeteria workers, I'm fine with the 1,200. So I'm on 2 out of the 4 of the recommendations by Select Person Mary Rose I agree with. It's just the other 2 that I would recommend that we alter from this proposal.
Thank you. For the Board of Health, do we have a rough idea on the number of hours worked on average each week for the employees where they're part-time? You know, that when I look at police fire working a minimum of 35 hours and overtime, and the Board of Health being a part-time department, I think that's, you know, for me, I think there is a differentiation between the amount of exposure police and fire may have been exposed to versus employees who are working, I don't want to say significantly less, but just not working full-time. So I think I would have reservations of providing hazard pay to a department without that information. I would have reservations about providing the same amount of compensation for a department that is not full-time. There were some fire department, you know, some firefighters who were probably upwards of 55 to 60 hours over a given week because of the shortages. And with the Board of Health, I don't think, unless someone tells me differently, I don't know that to be true for them.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I do know that after talking to some of the staff that, you know, they weren't just like in the office. If there were businesses out there, say gas stations that were attending business, they weren't wearing proper masks and things. They would get calls and they would have to go out. I mean, they weren't just sitting in the office. I mean, they were constantly working, and they were from, you know, March of 20, they worked 7 days a week for 15 months. I mean, I think it's hard for us to envision because we aren't here. We can't see what they're doing and what their functions are. I mean, the Board of Health has a lot of functions and responsibilities. And I think a lot of the work that they do, the general public doesn't actually see. A lot of theirs comes from calls from different agencies, different departments, people in the community. So I think it's really very hard to say, you know, let's just say the office worker in there, they're out, she's there taking calls. I mean, it's a small operation, but a very efficient, thank God for our town, they are, and they do a good job. And so, again, I think their job is very active with a lot of responsibilities.
And I don't want to, I want to make it clear, in no way was I insinuating that the health agents were not out in the field. That's not what my understanding of the role that they played during the pandemic was or is. The Select Board was very supportive of the Board of Health's initiatives whenever they came to the meetings. I'm simply looking at, I would like to see that if the claim is that they were working 7 days a week or they were working a significant amount of hours, I would like to see that, because my understanding is as they're part-time employees, and then we did we did provide additional pay for them to work additional hours, so I know there was an opportunity there. But until I see that, I have to, personally, I have to kind of separate police and fire from the Board of Health. And I agree with Mr. Deval within that range that he suggested.
Can I get a repeat of that range again?
I'm
Proposing?
proposing fire department 3,200, police department 2,500, Board of Health 1,800 and cafeteria 1,200.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no good at this stuff. I will have to echo what Mary said. I mean, I was there as chair of the board, and I think if there's anyone who went above and beyond, you have to include Board of Health in the discussion. It's really easy now to think, to look rosily on those days, but you know, we were in the thick of it. We had no idea what was going on, and other than my wife and Michael, I think I talked to the Board of Health chair more than anybody every week. And I think we did, for a small town with part-time help, who, again, none of us had any training or idea what we were doing, to be able to respond to, you know, mass complaints, to inspections, to getting information out. We were posting numbers every day. I mean, I maybe had a better seat than some people, but I really appreciated what they did as far as being on top of this for a town this small, because I saw other towns where boards of health and governing bodies didn't get along and didn't communicate, and it went off the rails. So I guess I'm more in the camp of taking care of these people because I think we have the means to do so, and I think they earned it. So if splitting up this cake, I don't know how we get there, but.
Listen, I think this is kind of the second time that we're hearing this. Having an opinion on varying levels of hazard pay. This is an appreciation pay, right? And it's not saying that, because people are potentially receiving different amounts of hazard pay, it's because their efforts were any less important to the town. So I want to make that clear. This is an appreciation pay. This is pay for employees that were subjected to hazardous conditions during a pandemic. And it's not about who went above and beyond, right? That, as far as, in my opinion. And I think when you look at the fire department who were wearing hazmat suits, I don't know that I could say the same thing about the Board of Health or the cafeteria workers, or I'm not sure about the police department either. So they all played a vital role. I wholeheartedly agree. But again, it's when we talked about the criteria, the exposure to hazard, I think is the criteria we discussed and agreed upon. And while they may have been going out to do inspections, it's going into a medical emergency, bringing them to a hospital, which was overrun by COVID cases. It's, there's definitely a different level of exposure in those scenarios.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Yeah, that's where I just struggle is if we're looking at this from a risk perspective, how we can justify that the Board of Health was at the same level of risk or exposure that the police department and especially the fire department was. I mean, the fire department was responding to known COVID cases, was transporting COVID sick individuals in an ambulance, like in an enclosed space. Yeah, they had PPE, they had protective gear, they had hazmat suits, but I mean, the fact that they had to wear those suits should speak volumes to the level of risk. And right behind them is the police department. And as someone correctly pointed out to me, the police department, although the frequency of their exposure was probably less, they didn't have the same amount of protective gear and hazmat suits. So their exposure risk was, although it was probably not as frequent, it was, you're dealing with, you still have to arrest people, you have to deal with rowdy individuals, and you don't know if they have it or don't have it. And it's not like the fire department, at least the patients are like compliant. The police department doesn't have that luxury. So I still think the fire department had a greater risk just by the sheer number of calls that they were dealing with COVID. But I think the police department was right behind them. And I have a tough time saying that, no disrespect to the Board of Health, they did a great job, but like from just a risk perspective, an exposure perspective, I think that's a really tough argument to say that the Board of Health is on the same level as the police department and the fire department.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the tiering, but I do feel like the first responders, I'm kind of putting them in a category of their own. I don't know about it, but I'm kind of feeling the same way. Again, I'm appreciated, but I do kind of put the first responders in one category and then maybe tiering after that, but that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we award the fire department hazard pay of $3,200.
Oh, we're
Or,
à la carte in this?
yeah,
Why not?
I'd rather go all together.
yeah.
So you said we're gonna do it.
Okay, someone else did somebody second? Nobody seconded it, right? So we
So-
can't, so someone else is gonna make a motion.
So are we not gonna do them all together? So do you want to?
Sure.
I
Mr.
would-
Chair.
Yeah, okay.
I'll make a motion that we award hazard pay to the following groups. Oh, you got the police and fire back. Fire, 3,200, police, 2,500, Board of Health, 2,000, cafeteria, 1,200.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Sorry, what was the police?
I was going off Ed's at 2,500.
2,500.
2,500. Can we just add that up before we vote?
Mr. Chair, I amend my motion to the police to 2,750.
Second.
That's an amendment.
Okay.
Motion on the table for an amendment. Did you second any discussion on that? There be none, all in
Wait,
favor? Oh,
sorry, is this the amendment?
This is the amendment.
the amendment is the 2750 for police. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So now we have a motion for fire, 3,200, police, 2,750, Board of Health, 2,000, cafeteria, 1,200. That's
Any
been
further
seconded.
That's already been
discussion?
seconded.
Yeah, any discussion? There be none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So there's one other aspect of this I think that we need to discuss would be, do we want to look at the criteria to qualify within each of those departments, right? If you had,
No.
you know what I mean? So like if say an employee starts,
If somebody worked one day during the COVID stretch, do they deserve as much pay as someone that worked the
No.
full year?
so,
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can decide however you want to.
well, that's what we have, that's why I'm bringing this up. If you want to prorate it, or does the board want to prorate it? Does the board want to set a, if they worked 50% or over, they get full pay. If they didn't work at least 50%.
Do we know what the exposure is? Like how many people would fall out? How many outliers do we have as far as?
I think the outliers would be the cafeteria workers. You did have some that worked that first school year into the summer, and then they had some people that started in September with the new school year. So
That'll get
that
them.
would be
To May though, that's
a
another.
couple of months that they wouldn't have
Yeah.
worked.
Do we want to just prorate it based upon the number of months that they were employed with the town of Clinton, and then
Yeah, that
Divide
makes
it.
sense.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
do we want to make a motion on it?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt a policy of prorating hazard pay based on months of service during the state of emergency. Is that what they call it, right?
For everybody, for all departments.
All departments.
Yes.
So just before, I have no problem with the motion, but a question, so like, then only someone that worked 100% of the time would get these amounts, and if they like, is it?
Months, like.
It's a matter of months, okay,
Yes.
all right, okay, that's that, second.
I have one other question,
Sure,
Mr. Chairman.
sure.
I know that I had brought up and we had discussed about if you had worked the entire 15 months during the pandemic and you retired since then, I think we were waiting to get an answer if those people,
I
don't know
why you wouldn't.
I just don't, they were an employee of the town of Clinton. Just by their age, they retired.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
So now, it just seems to me it's not fair to say,
I agree.
well, okay, we're not going to give you any money because you retired.
Right.
No, risk is risk. If they were still exposed, if they still had risk, I don't think it should matter the fact if they retired or not.
So can
I think it
we,
was
can we
just a
just look
matter
at
Yeah.
if, that we can do that? And then, secondly, if the person is receiving, their pension or whatever the case may be, would that
Bump it.
impact them negatively because they're receiving additional pay?
Well, it's only a one-time compensation. It's not something
I
that,
mean, there's people that were working, that were unable to take a job in town because it was like
Too much.
over a couple $100 was gonna bump, it was gonna mess with their income. I just don't wanna mess with anybody's
well,
income.
I mean,
could
someone
decline
doesn't
it.
have to, they can,
Decline
as
it.
Julie said, they don't have to take it. I mean, if it's,
Completely agree.
Yeah.
All I'm saying
You know.
is, I'm in favor of people who
Yeah.
worked during the pandemic being, provided hazard pay. I'm just saying, from the standpoint of, number one, can we do it legally? And number two, I don't want to mess anybody's financial situation up that's all.
Yeah, so if the board is okay with them being eligible, then we can work out all those other details.
Yeah.
As to who gets and who doesn't.
Perfect.
Do we need to codify that, or are you guys okay with that?
Yep, no, just as long as you just to make a motion that the retirees are also eligible, then we'll work with who gets it and who doesn't.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that, to clarify that retirees who work during the state of emergency, subject to the prorated rates, are also eligible for.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Moving on to the town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few items to kind of give an update. First, the Community and Economic Development Office has received a grant from the New England Foundation for the Arts in the amount of $15,000 to be used for temporary public art.
1.5? 1.5 or 5.0?
15,000, yep, 15,000, 1.5, yep. So at the next meeting, the office and Mr. Duffy, the downtown consultant, will come in and give an update on the downtown art project with the painting of the electrical boxes, and also this project as well. But in order to start the paperwork to bring a contract to the board for approval, the foundation is just looking for an okay that the town wants to proceed with the 15,000. So it's temporary public art, so there's no really definition of what it's going to be. It'll be a call for artists, and it's not permanent. It's something, whether it's a sculpture that'll be removed, or I guess we'll have to see what the submittals are, whether it's a painting that will be painted over again. I'm not sure, but we don't really have a criteria what it will be. But they just wanted the indication that we were okay with going forward with the contract to say that we wanted the money. So as long as there's no objection to it, we'll come back at the next meeting with the contract paperwork for the board to approve if everyone's okay. So,
Very good.
so that was the first item. The next is the Willow Street paving has been completed. I know the road was kind of a little bit dusty there for a while and kind of bumpy, but that top coat has been put on. This past week, we also received bids for the upcoming paving season for the spring. Mr. McGowan went out early for the bid because there's such a lead time for curbing and materials to get it in ready for the construction in the spring. So he'll be coming at the next meeting as well, with recommendations on award of bid and streets that will be done with that money. And I believe one would be also the Greeley Street sidewalk project is included in that package as well too. So the next is the open space recreation plan held at public forum last week. Just wanted again to remind anyone that's interested in providing input can still do so. There was input at that public meeting. There's been online input, but that, as the chair mentioned the last meeting, the tinyurl.com / Clinton Community Input, that is still open for people to go on and kind of note areas of concern around town that will help go into research for that report. The update on the Superintendent of Public Works search, the search committee will be meeting next week to begin the process of setting up candidate interviews for that position. So that's moving along, trying to move it at a quick pace. Twofold. One is Mr. McGowan will be leaving at the end of the year, but also trying to capitalize on any candidates' interest so that we don't lose them to other potential jobs. So. Next, just wanted to make a note, I know it's in the packet, that publicly on the selectmen's side, I think the school committee had done it, but that Joel Bates submitted a resignation letter from his position on the school committee. I'd like to thank Mr. Bates for his years of service to the town, and the school committee will be coming to the select board's next meeting to discuss how to go forward on filling that position. It will only be an appointment until the next municipal election in the spring. And finally, again, it was in the packet, but just for a public announcement, the Bigelow Library Trustees extended invitation to the Select Board and the public to attend their Bigelow Free Public Library celebration of its past, present, and future, an event that will be held on Wednesday, December 6th from 5:30 to 7:30, and this will conclude their year-long 150th anniversary recognition year. So just a few things that I have for tonight, and we do have a number of items coming forward for the next meeting as well that I mentioned tonight to the chair. So the tax classification hearing will be held on 11/29 at the next meeting. The school, as I mentioned, will be here. Dr. Meyer from the school would like to give an update on the middle school project. We will have the consultants that conducted the technology assessment will be coming in to discuss findings with the board. Mr. McGowan will be in. I think the police chief has a couple issues, and Mr. Duffy will be in on the public art project. So we do have a lot happening for the next meeting. So
Sweeps week.
so
Very good.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Administrative business, we have a water sewer trash abatement in the amount of $1,934.12. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll move to approve the abatements.
Second.
Any discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Hall auditorium use request for a private function on June 22nd, 2024.
Mr. Chair, I would only ask that the board give me time to get together with Joyce to review this request, because I know the last time we hosted weddings, there was, it just wasn't clear in the expectations of the people renting it, like who was responsible for disposing the trash, and there was food that was left over, and the vendor was saying, it's not my problem, and the wedding people were saying, it's not my problem, and I think we ended up having to take care of it ourselves. So if the board would permit, let me get together with Joyce to review this application, just to make sure that those expectations are in there, and we can probably include the custodial staff too, to make sure that, you know, whatever is in here for the expectations matches with what they would want to see.
Sure, absolutely. We'll probably have Mr. Farragher involved, because I know with the permanent custodian that was in this position had retired, so Mr. Farragher will be able to give some input. I know that the facilities director is open to continuing these type of events, so
Yeah.
but to your point, all those expectations should be put in writing so that everyone knows what they need to do.
Right, I don't want people not to use the town hall for events like this, but we just, what the expectation is of them just needs to be clear up front, so we don't have kind of issues like we had the last time.
Right, and after that event, that there was a pause put on it, and
Right.
again, the facilities director's not looking to have this, this type of event stopped. It's just, setting the rules, that's all.
So we will discuss that at a later meeting. We'll discuss that at a later meeting.
Except next
I'll
meeting, yeah,
report,
29th as well. Yeah,
Review the application and report back to the board.
yeah, thank you.
Well,
Sure.
just, I don't know how long these people need to go with their request, so why couldn't we just move on the request and have Eddie talk to Joyce, and then whatever is decided that they need to do and what has to be done and what commitments they have to make. It just seems, instead of holding them up until you.
That's fair. Yeah, so the motion would just be contingent on
Correct.
whatever the requirements are. Okay, I don't have a problem with that.
Is that you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we go ahead with the approval for the date of June 24, what was it?
June 22nd.
June 22nd, 2024, for a private party wedding function in the town hall, with the approval of the criteria that's decided that they need to meet on behalf of the town's request.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Just that they should amend this application because it says 2023 on it.
Says what?
It says 2023 on the application, just,
Oh,
Just
oh, new application.
new application, start over.
just to be clear.
Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Under all the new business, the first item, the municipal vehicle use policy. Thank you very much to Michael and Angela for putting that together. Did everybody on the board have an opportunity to look through it?
Yes.
Any questions?
Yeah, and there is a lot there, it is pretty extensive, so I don't think, there's, certainly it's going to apply to whatever the board approves, so there are numerous pages there, so if there hasn't been an opportunity to go through every point, certainly it's not an emergency either, so if you need more time.
I thought it touched upon all the points that we had discussed. And this would be all departments, union and non-union, would be fall under this policy.
Right. Yeah, we never really had one before, and especially, if there's any of the take-home vehicles, because that should be, we really should have that clarified, because there are, certain implications of if people only use it at work, or if they take it home as well, too. So by having it in a policy, it's clear, and it can be distributed to everyone so that everyone's following the same criteria. So, but it was pretty comprehensive, so I think there is a lot that's covered in there. That's just good.
I think the only request for consideration will be, in the event you have a person on that list who's approved to take a vehicle home, what's the radius we're looking at? If the person is, from Dedham, they take the vehicle home with them to Dedham, or is there a range? That's the only thing I would look at, or I would ask for consideration on, or clarification. I don't know that I'm necessarily in favor of somebody traveling, 25 miles home in a town vehicle. That's just my own my own position.
The only thing would be to consider that some of these people that are on call or come back for emergencies, like in a snowstorm, that then they have to go to the garage and then go to the emergency. So it just adds time to whatever situation they're coming back in if they do live out of town. You know, that's why the people that have it right now are really the emergency people.
Yeah, we just don't want people using town vehicles driving on their vacations to Maine or whatever, you know?
Right, it has to be town business.
Yeah, right. And so I don't know how, if GPS is the answer, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have some form of accountability just to make sure that there is no abuse. I'm not saying that there is, but I'm saying it's always good to have a plan to make sure that there never can be, that's all.
All right. Do we? Well, all right. So then I'll just say one last piece on that. The distance traveled for an emergency vehicle. I know that there was something that was mentioned about there's tax. There could be tax implications. Is that something that's determined by the treasurer collector, or is there statute that regulates that, or?
No, I think it's federal tax law, yeah, that they would have to fall under, because it's a benefit if they're commuting with their vehicle. And especially if it's, even more so if it's long distance, then that value increases, you know, it depends on how much they're using it. So they're getting use of that vehicle, and the maintenance and fuel is being supplied by the town. So that is an added benefit that needs to be monetized to be part of kind of their income almost. It's kind of adding to their compensation package for the town. Yeah.
Good.
But, yeah, but again, it's something we can look into. I don't know if emergency response vehicles.
Right, there might be
Are
some exemption for
exemption.
police and fire, but the other ones I don't think there is.
Yeah, right.
Right. Do we want to act on this tonight, or do we want to wait?
I'm good.
All right. Is that a motion?
Do all work tonight. Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the submitted vehicle use policy. Town vehicle use policy, is what we're going to call it. Municipal vehicle use policy is what it says here.
I'll second it.
That's a second. Any discussion, questions? There be none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. The next item, the budget timeline forms. Does anyone have any feedback that they want to provide based on those forms, or are we good to go?
Yeah, mostly we're looking to see if there's information that the departments that you would like them to submit. You know, if there's something, like the finance committee wanted to have grant information. So if departments are using grants towards their operation, that they would like to know that. So if there's something of that nature that you think that would be helpful in looking at their budgets, that they could submit up front. I know one year we did ask for a list of vehicles, so we know what equipment they had. So, you know, what are things that you think are helpful for you to see what their needs are for the upcoming year? That's all.
I think that, you know, it should be standardized as far as getting inventory on vehicles, you know, and then as far as what amount of funding maybe has been received, whether from the state, because I know that, like with the library, for example, to have an idea of what do they have available for funds that they have received from the state. I think that's something that would be, you know, should be factored into budget consideration. And then lastly, if they're looking to add positions, or they're looking to modify positions to increase hours, I think that's something that should be a standalone with some sort of narrative to go along with it.
Exactly. Yeah, the finance committee did mention that as well too, exactly, that should jump out at you. So if there's an upgrade in a position or a new position, that should be easily identified. Yeah.
Agreed.
So, yeah, good.
That makes sense.
Do we want to formalize this in the form of a motion?
Just the timeline and the request forms.
Yeah, I think the timeline is essential, that's driven by FinCom, the timeline?
Right, but mostly by bylaw. So
Okay.
there's a finance bylaw, and that's where, what they found has been helpful in the past couple of years for the current finance committee, found that that's been helpful to them. So if they feel if they start too early, there's not enough information to really make decisions. But, so I think by having everything in by February 1st, gives February, March, April, and May to really spend time on hearings and deliberation.
So this is really basically just informational for us and for any input, so, I mean, I think they've already set their standard, basically.
Right, exactly, yeah. So I think we're just looking to see, like, a
Yeah.
couple of comments, if there was something additional we should ask for them, but as long as everyone's good, then we'll proceed with the process.
I think they've done a pretty thorough job myself, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that there's anything that we need to really approve. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just their information to us.
Right, and this is what's currently in existence, so
Right.
it doesn't need any approval, there's nothing changing, nothing new
Right.
changing, so,
Yeah, I think, the discussion really centered around ensuring that the expectation of this information, these forms are gonna be used.
right,
That was the big thing.
Right.
Again,
yeah.
behind.
We'll give them that directive, yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Next item, the FY '23 annual report format. I had spoke with Michael about the, again, just kind of unifying the annual report itself, making sure that the criteria that, or the information that we would be looking for is in there. And just looking at the last annual town report, letterhead has been updated. So, Michael had mentioned how the printing process has changed, so that's allowed for the updating for each department's, what do you call that page on a fax? The cover letter,
Cover.
the cover letter, right?
Yeah.
Right,
So-
right. It used to be when we would do the manual typesetting, everything would be the same. There'd be no graphics, no identifiers. So I think some departments now, when we're doing the 8.5 by 11, have been using their letterhead or their logos, but then some are still doing it the old way. So I think everyone should have some criteria, and I think the chair mentioned too about by having that, then you have contact information and board member names, or who's on each board and stuff. It's all right there on the report, so that's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, the only piece that I would, look at or request consideration on would be when we were just looking through it, if there's, something on the cover letter where like kind of differentiates from the other pages, because as we were going through looking, it kind of starts blending together, right? And I know that there is an index in the front of it, and that's probably what I should have used when looking through, but just to kind of distinguish, department from department, so as you go in section to section, it jumps right out at you. But I think that format was great. And then the timeline, what would you anticipate for a projected timeline on when you think it would go to publishing?
Well, again, giving the directive that we want this in, it's, the bylaw indicates January 20th. So if this, with this input tonight, we can get this out by next week and indicate that they have to make that timeline of January 20th. So with that, it gives us more, instead of pushing, stragglers in February or March, or asking for it later in the process, by asking for it early, they should be able to make that timeline. And then it gives plenty of time from January to May to get something out well in advance of town meeting, so it's not just that night.
Do you think is March an unrealistic timeline? If providing everybody gets what they need to get in?
It's not unrealistic, it would be maybe a little bit tight, but that could
April?
be something to shoot for, but no later than April should
Okay.
definitely be doable by April, but March, April timeframe should be
Perfect.
easy, yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much. The next item for community announcements.
Mr. Chair?
Sure. Oh, well, the new,
No, I wanted to, I think I had committee.
oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Before we move on to committee reports, can I just bring a couple things up under old and new business?
This is Ron Burgundy again. I didn't see it on the sheet, so I skipped right over to it. So the community announcements. So go ahead, go for it.
Goes on, myself, and I think he still want.
Yeah, so
You want old and new?
Old and new, old
Sure.
and new business. Just two things real quick. Mike, did we ever get when we did a walk of the sidewalks and we were looking at the relief cuts and we suspected that the relief cuts in the sidewalks were not sufficient enough and we were gonna go review the plans and see if the plans specifically called out like what the expectations for, what the specifications were for that? Do you know if Phil had a chance to take a look at that or?
Yeah, I didn't talk with Phil. I spoke briefly with Mr. McGowan about
Okay.
it, and it did not appear that on the plans that those cuts were identified in the plans. And in the spec, it says that expansion joints and the sidewalk cuts would be subject to Mass Highway specs. So I don't know if it said like every square said put a line here or put a line there. I think it was based upon industry accepted standard that it's like so many feet or at certain locations, that type of thing. So so I can get that 100%, but I think that was just my conversation with Chris.
Okay.
That it didn't outline every line on our stretch.
Sure.
It just said you have to follow the accepted principles of Mass Highway, accepted sidewalk specifications, that type of thing.
Okay, so so we kind of have an answer, like there's a criteria or an expectation that was in the plans. So I'd just be curious so we just have to take a look if the Mass Highway spec has some sort of call out for depth of relief cuts or anything like that. I mean, because from my brief understanding of this, there should be some instruction on that. I mean, there are industry standards to like how deep those cuts should be versus how big the sidewalk is. And if they were in those plans and they were referenced and they weren't followed, that's one problem. If they weren't anywhere in the plans anywhere, that's kind of another problem, that like we didn't have anything in. So I mean, either way, I think we have opportunity for improvement. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The other thing I just want to
I can verify that. That was a conversation with Chris, but I didn't see it in writing. So
Sure.
I'll verify that.
Okay, thank you. The other thing was where are we at with that professional development activity that we had with the Collins Center? I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like 5 months ago, 6 months ago, around that time frame.
Right.
Are we still waiting for their like final kind of like recommendations, or where are we at with that?
We are. There's two things. One is, as part of that, there was meetings with employees, but then when HR wanted to do like a survey for employees, so if people in that group meeting weren't comfortable on saying things or bringing something forward, they wanted to do an individualized survey to each employee. There was a bit of delay with the consultant on getting that crafted, and then it went through a couple of revisions and iterations. So that has been distributed to the employees now with a deadline of next week for them to complete it. And then the hope was that the final report would be back to the select board in December, sometime in December. So then based on that, they'll come up with existing conditions, any input from departments on how to better, manage customers' expectations. So that's what we're trying to do, whether it's, lunch coverages or communication on the door when the office is closed or coverage or those type of things. So all that will be part of that process.
I don't have a problem with the feedback from employees being like a data point, but we went to the Collins Center as they're an independent consultant. So they should kind of be giving us their opinion. You know, like if their opinion is based on kind of like an industry standard that we shouldn't have people working through lunch, and a survey comes back and is like, well, I want to work through lunch. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
so it's just whatever. I just want to. I'm fine with having the feedback as a data point, but the recommendations of the independent consultant should be the like main takeaway from this. Okay.
Absolutely,
All right.
no, absolutely. As HR indicated, there are going to be some areas that might be just crunching numbers, but then
Sure.
there are other areas that's just going to be wanting to hear from the employees. What are their opinion? Why,
Yep.
if they feel they're doing it a certain way, why they're doing it that way? Is there a way that we can make it better or correct it, or
Yep.
you know, if there's an issue? But absolutely, I think when they came here, they did their overview. They already have some thoughts and some
Okay.
ideas and things and those type of things. There's some labor law issues that we
Sure.
need to look at, that if people aren't taking breaks or they're not taking lunch,
Right.
so that they can shorten the day, we're going to be liable for not
Sure.
giving them that, forcing them that break. So those type of things will definitely be in there. But we wanted to give, you know, if we say this department is doing X, we want to give at least the department to say why they're doing it that way.
Fair enough.
That's all.
Yep. Okay. No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Any other old move? All right, and then committee reports?
Committee reports. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to announce that I did take on Old Home Day last year. And I just feel at this time that I don't feel that I want to do it again next year. But, you know, there's a lot in place, and there's sufficient money. And I would hope that maybe some committees in town or people would step forward. I know that the next thing you mentioned is the tree lighting. And so that's a coordination of two departments. I mean, Old Home Day actually is a town of Clinton function, and it really is the people who have always sponsored it have been the Board of Selectmen. And really through the generosity of the Civic Foundation, it's been able to keep going, and obviously other donations as well. And I would really hope and pray that, you know, people come and step forward, because this would be the 24th year coming up. And, you know, I certainly would be willing to give my time and get out there and do some fundraising as I did this past year. But it takes time, it takes a lot of effort. And I have to say that Julie was one of the people there on Saturday morning with the field hockey team, and Saturday morning never would have happened, and getting all those people in the park set up. So, I mean, that's just an indication of how there's so much coordination that goes into it. And it's not late. I mean, we do have a lot of vendors that we can go back to, you know, food vendors in the park. So I really hope and pray that someone does step up and keep it going. And I know that the Board of Selectmen certainly have supported it, and let's hope and pray that, again, that it all comes together.
Well, thank you for your time, right?
Yeah.
I think between the board, the previous committee dissolving, and it seemed to kind of go a lot faster than we expected, and, you know, thank you for spearheading that, and thank you to all the other people who volunteered, and that sounded like a nomination for Julie.
I know. I mean, I give you a lot of credit. Planning an event of this size, I don't think people recognize how much time and how much labor goes into it. So it would probably be good to figure out like how much time is actually being spent on it. I mean, it's a great event, but to your point, it was run for many years by citizen volunteers who devoted a lot of time to it. It's a big undertaking, so.
I mean, I would certainly stay on the committee and,
Yeah.
you know, do my part. If someone wants to take it, you know, as the, per se, like
Yeah.
the leader, you know, because when you get into it, there really isn't a leader. I mean, if to make it all come together, it's really a community thing, and it's a lot of people that have to. And again, like I said, Saturday morning was a sure indication of that, you know.
Yeah,
because there's
yeah, it
a lot
comes
of,
together.
a lot that, you know, a lot that comes with it.
Yeah.
So,
Should we consider a stipend to entice like a lead coordinator?
you know, I think
know,
if you
it's
get
tough.
into that, you know, it's really a community, you know, giving of your time, Eddie, once you start, you
Yeah.
know, compensating people. I mean, we do have a substantial amount of money left to start it all up, because you do have to make commitments, you know, you have to,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, certain vendors that, you know, for the band and different things like that in the past. And I mean, I saw, you know, things that we had this past year that I don't think really were a good fit, that it was probably money that we could have spent in other ways and stuff like that. So I'd be opposed paying someone to keep it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's my own, it's a community thing, and I mean, that's my own personal opinion. I mean, it's,
I feel like it
you know,
needs
it's
to be
been
like a
23,
town
it's
event
been
or-
23 years of just
Yeah.
volunteers, you know,
Right.
so.
Yep.
Like yeah, I think it would have to be like either or, like we're either devoting funds and resources to this event from the town, or it is volunteer based.
Correct.
Like it has been in the
Right,
past.
right. I mean, if you're willing to get on the committee, Julia.
I know. Well, I've
I mean, Ed's
I've planned many
was it
events,
Ed that
and it's
nominated
really,
you, I think?
yeah. I've planned so many events that I know it is a lot of time commitment. I don't know if I can make that commitment right now, but
So why don't we keep this on the agenda going forward so we can at least,
Well, you gotta get going.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you gotta start, you know, tying people in, you know. You can't, you know, like last year when those people came in and said, we're all done. And it was like, not only were they all done, but they were short on money.
yeah.
And so, again, you know, the board came through with the 2 years of funding, which was $10,000, which was a big chunk of money, and then the fundraising that we did. So, again, before you start, you're down about $25,000, $30,000, so.
yeah.
Yeah, well, all right, let's keep it on there and then.
Well, I mean, you could always take it on. I mean,
Why not? Why not? You
you
know?
can try everybody here. Sean's being awful quiet. You what, Pat?
He's gonna be looking for more marathons to run.
He's busy that weekend.
Kind of under committee reports, because at one point, I think the ALS was a committee. I'm just curious. Do we know, Mike, where I think at the last meeting, and forgive me, I forgot to follow up with you after that meeting, but I think we just asked, like, the report has been kicked off from that consultant, and in the agreement, it was 90 days. Do we know what those dates are?
Yeah, well, two things. I don't have a date for you tonight, I
No problem.
apologize, but I did send an email to the consultant
Yeah.
asking for an update as to the status.
Okay.
I know the last that I spoke to him, he had submitted an extensive data collection request to the
Yep.
town. So I know that was taking some time to put together. So I'd reached out to him to ask if he has that information, how far along is he?
Right.
And what is his timeline to have this completed? So
Right.
I'll have that for the next meeting.
Yeah, as long as his timeline is within our timeline.
Yeah, I think
Well, if he's waiting
that was
for
his
a month for us.
goal, was definitely going to be within the timeline we
Yeah.
asked for, but it
Yeah.
was contingent upon
Yeah.
getting.
Correct, I agree with you
Right.
100%. Yeah,
That he-
if we're dragging our feet, getting them the information they need,
Yeah.
then yes, I agree with that 100%. I mean, so I think the big ask for me then would just be, can we try to define when the start date was? That's all.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to, I'll catch up with you later on.
Yep, I'll get that.
And I think even if we can just reach out internally to see, does anyone have anything that they're still working on to get back to the consultant to kind
Right.
of figure out what that is, and then,
Yep,
you know, if somebody is swamped with it, then, you know, what can we do to move it forward? Because, you know, we were pretty clear on the timeline, but we have to make sure we're doing.
And all the constituents were at the table when we signed this deal and we knew what we were getting into. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that these
Right.
ads were coming.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other committee reports?
The cable committee did meet. It was a great meeting, and we're going to meet again. We talked a lot of school issues. I know people have been watching a lot of sports. We got a football game coming up this weekend, Saturday.
Saturday.
Are we doing that one?
I think they're filming the JV one on the Chicken Bowl on Friday, but I don't know about the Saturdays.
Yeah, I don't know if
'Cause it's away.
Shrewsbury streams, but I would say check the
Check Green Light
Clinton
for more.
Athletics Facebook page.
Yeah, it's an ongoing work in progress, trying to, work with schools to improve the product that we're getting from them and the services that we're helping them with. And, it's, again, it's a side project for a lot of people over there, and we just want to make sure that everybody's getting what they want. So, to be continued.
Very good. All right, community announcements. Holiday tree lighting on November 25th at 5 PM in Central Park. The Parks and Recreation Department and Community and Economic Development Office are working together to bring our community a fun and festive evening as we kick off the 2023 holiday season. The event features caroling, entertainment, refreshments, and of course, the annual tree lighting ceremony. And I've noticed that the lighting has been going up around town and people are already complimenting, which is phenomenal. So thank you very much to the Holiday Lighting Committee. Any other community announcements? The Clinton High School football team plays Saturday morning at 11 a.m. at Shrewsbury High School.
Not to get on the MIA, but like, how did they didn't have one of our fields available? Is it?
No, they go to a neutral
They have
site
to go to neutral.
at this point,
Artificial
And
turf.
turf.
and
yeah,
turf,
So,
which we don't have either.
no.
I think it has to be at a neutral site, though.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
We could charge $12 a ticket at our place. We could pay for the artificial turf.
This is true.
You've been reading the boosters posts.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm a super fan.
I am too.
Very good. Yeah, that's a
that's a good deal.
little plug for the Clinton Boosters. They're still accepting memberships for the for all membership levels, and for the super fan membership, and that would get you into all winter sports. You would not have to pay an entrance fee, and it goes and supports the kids, like for the Spirit Bus that they've put together to just go down to Rockland. So there are plenty of memberships available. Very good. So our next meeting will be on Wednesday, November 29th. Sounds like a full docket. I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
We're going to table this. Do we have to say we have to table this executive session or no?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yeah, we're meeting with them next week, so Labor Council asked if we could wait till after that meeting. Yep, sorry, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.